I was shocked to read on your website that 79% of teachers in BC are still doing dissections,
Yep.
and millions of animals are being dissected across Canada. So it seems like there's so many problems with this animal situation in the schools, and it's a focus of your organization, I think, right?
Absolutely, yes. So when I think about, when we want to replace animals way down the line in research and testing, what do we need to do to make non-animal methods the obvious choice for people, right? Well, that speaks to our entire science culture, and we actually have it in our, I think, constitution, or our mission as an organization, which is to build an ethical culture of science that respects animal life. That's like the first motivation behind why we founded this organization. And so when I think about science culture and how that is built, it starts in our science education in schools. And I think that what happens is that, and you're an education assistant, so you can probably speak to this a little bit too, that I think that there are so many students, in fact, I think it maybe is inherent in everybody, with very few exceptions, is that when you're very young, you have a natural compassion and empathy towards animals. And our science education system, starting very, very young, is asking students to put that empathy and compassion aside in the name of science. And that in the name of science, animals can then become tools. They can become these inert things that we kill, and we take them apart because scientific curiosity is asking us to shelve our sensitivity and our empathy and our compassion. And so you have students in, as young as grade 5 doing looking at animal organs, and then you get like a full frog in grade 8, and then grade 9 and 10 maybe you get a rat dissection, and then grade 12 you've got your fetal pig dissection. So frogs, rats, and fetal pigs are the 3 primary species that are used in dissections in British Columbia, at least, and I would probably wager across the country. And I think that's I think it's stripping students of their empathy when they're told that this is the way that we do science. And as someone who is a scientist, I never did dissection in school, not because I opted out, but because it wasn't offered to me in my UK education. It wasn't offered to me in my undergraduate neuroscience degree. And I've been an animal researcher and in my career. And like I said, I had feelings about that and I pivoted. But in my science education, I was allowed to still be my empathetic, compassionate self and learn about animal anatomy, which was fascinating and curious to me. I wanted to be a veterinarian, so how bodies work was really, really fascinating to me. But I think that I don't just think, the data shows me that we can very effectively teach those things without using real animals. We can save schools money. Non-animal teaching methods are the greener option for our schools. Non-animal teaching methods are inherently inclusive of all different kinds of students. Whether you have mobility issues and your dexterity is lacking, non-animal methods allow different modalities of learning that will allow students with maybe dexterous issues to participate. If students learn at a slower pace, non-animal teaching methods allow people to consolidate their learning in a way that allows them to keep up with everybody else. If you are someone who's a vegan student, if you're a Jewish student, if you're a First Nation student, dissection, especially I mentioned Jewish because if you're faced with a fetal pig dissection, that's going to be a big deal for you, right? And so we need to think about who are the young people who are in our classrooms and how can we provide inclusive educational experiences for them. And so when you're just faced with a dissection and you have no opportunity to opt out, and the burden is squarely on your shoulders as a young person to stand up to your teacher and say, even if your teacher's lovely, the power imbalance is the burden squarely on the student at the moment to say, I want to opt out. And a lot of students will just suck it up and do something that they're really, really uncomfortable with because they don't even know that they have a choice, right? And so because of all of that, we have spent the last 3 years developing a humane science education program. It's multifaceted. We do a lot of work in this program. We do guest classes in schools, so teachers can book us to come in and just deliver their class for them using non-animal teaching methods. And ahead of time, we're very teacher focused, so we're never like, you're doing a bad thing by doing dissection. We're basically saying, hey, if you want to teach your students most effectively, this is the clear path, not that. And we'll show you how. So rather than just saying that the burden's now on teachers to do all the research into non-animal methods to find the most cost-effective ones, we've taken on that burden. So literally teachers can call us and say, I want you to come in, I want you to teach this class. Then hopefully what happens is it's a kind of see one, do one kind of model, where if we come in and do a guest class, we're not going to be coming in and doing guest classes for the same school year after year. We're going, unless the school can't afford to buy some of the non-animal alternatives. But what happens is that it's educational for teachers in the process as well. And they will, again, like, we all know, I think many of us will know why replacing animals in dissection is a valuable thing to do. But the how question is a different one to answer. And we're trying to answer both, like why and how. And the how for teachers is the most important. I literally, my morning was spent with the Surrey Teachers Association convention, and I did a workshop on the how. And so that was literally the call before this one today. And it's really cool to hear teachers' feedback, to be like, wow, I just really learned a lot today, and thank you. Like, I had no idea that all of this stuff was available to me. And so the encouraging thing so far is that the reception from teachers has been overwhelmingly positive. I think I had it in my notes. I don't have my notes in front of me, but to date, we have taught over 300 classes, and we have taught more than 2,000 students. We've done about 20 different teacher training workshops. And most importantly, for, I guess, people who might be your audience, we estimate, it's hard to get the data, but we estimate that thanks to our work, more than 5,000 animals have been replaced in dissection. As a direct result of our work, unfortunately, there's no national data or provincial data on numbers of animals used in dissection. So we can't use any existing data to track whether animal use is going down. But what we can do is say, we know that this teacher, if it wasn't for our guest class, this teacher would have ordered probably about 15 rats or however many pigs, right? And so our estimates are based on that, plus teacher interactions where we know that teachers haven't booked us for a guest class, but they've gone away and purchased things and delivered their own classes.
So great. That's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like a very small number when you just cited, there are millions, but like it's very grassrootsy, because to change culture, you need to just get in there and have individual conversations and with teachers and students. And so I'm really proud of our impact, actually.
Yeah, well, and I can imagine that's only going to grow. Those veggie vegan kids have veggie vegan parents, and it occurs to me that the disconnect that we're taught between the animals that we play with and the animals that we consume, and the sort of the distancing that most of us still, I think many of us have grown up with. It starts with our food, and it's extended by what we experience in schools often. So, there's all sorts of ways to try to protect the animals and encourage alternative behaviors, it seems to me. And it's wonderful what you're doing. And I would imagine there's also veggie vegan teachers who aren't, you know, they have to teach some curriculum and this
Mhm.
is not appealing to them. So I'm curious then, how would teachers contact you? And is this happening across Canada, or it's
Mhm.
in BC, or, you know, it sounds like it's snowballing. It's becoming a big project for you folks.
It is, it is. So in terms of people who would love to connect with our resources and what we offer, of course, we're in the middle of the pandemic and schools are closed for the rest of the year. So we are now offering online classes. They're public and they're free, and they're every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 o'clock. That is, so our website is www.animalsinscience.org. And then to access our full course schedule and to register for whatever class you want to take in May and June, to that URL, you would add /online-classes. And I can send you that if you want to afterwards, so you can post it alongside the video maybe. I don't know.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So that would be like May and June this year that we're offering those free public classes, and then we're also taking private teacher bookings during this time as well on Wednesdays, and that can be booked through our calendar. We can't offer those for free, unfortunately, because we need to also make sure that our program is sustainable in the future. But there are some creative ways that teachers have found to get funding for those classes. Like even if it's just asking, you know, each parent for $4, it's yeah. And we would never turn anyone down, but we need to make sure that our program is sustainable.
Right. And so I mean, you say that the schools are closed. They are, but teaching is still happening.
Absolutely.
And my understanding is I'm not called into the schools at this point. I work as a spare board employee, so I'm kind of low down on the list of people. But my understanding is that the teachers are working from their classrooms, and some are utilizing Zoom
Yep.
with their students, and then others are kind of FaceTiming with their students
Yep.
or whatever. So it seems like now, you know, teachers are becoming more and more familiar with different types
Mhm.
of technology and alternatives. It seems like a perfect time to.
Yes, it really is. I think that you've just touched on something that has been like a very, very unexpected silver lining to this pandemic for a charity like us. The first is that teachers getting more well versed with video conferencing software and leaning into online teaching in ways that they probably haven't never been faced with before, and understanding that it can be successful. And I know that we, you know, for many reasons might want to limit screen time with kids, but for our program to be expanded across Canada, like we're a super small charity, we're a team of 2, and we're based in Vancouver, but we have lofty goals and we want to offer our programs across Canada. And so the best way to do that is to do an online class with us through Zoom, right? And they've been very successful so far. We make them as engaging as we can, and the students have loved them so far. The other thing is that you can't do a real animal dissection in your classroom right now, because guess what? You can't have your students in the classroom with you. And so the teachers who, some of them who have been wanting to offer dissections have reached out to us to say, hey, what are the apps that I can use to teach this content without the animal specimen? And so this kind of, we're perhaps reaching people that we wouldn't have reached because it's just out of the necessity of the issue. And what I'm hoping is that those teachers in particular don't go back to using real animals. They see the value because they have a lived experience of using apps now, and they know that they can teach successfully using them. And so in lots of ways, it's just forced their hand to explore the technologies that are available to them. And I'm really hoping that it encourages teachers who maybe wouldn't explore their options with us because they're so wedded to doing real animal dissection. It just helps them along their path a little bit so that they don't switch back once they get in-person classes up and running again.
Oh, I didn't, somehow I escaped having to do any dissections until college. And then I think it was a snake. And all I remember is the smell of the formaldehyde was,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I
rough.
can't imagine as a teacher that you would refuse alternatives just on that basis alone. So let's talk about some of the tools then. I think on your website it lists like mannequins. There's virtual.
Yeah,
This is virtual, and then CT scan data. Can you just give us an idea what those things are?
yeah, I can show you. Actually, I
Oh,
have some
cool.
things right next to me.
Okay.
So in terms of models, I put my frog away from the workshop, but I have this little guy sat next to me who is it's a paper frog dissection, and he comes just organs, and you cut them out, and then you stick your frog together.
Oh, cool.
And this is a female frog, and you can get different sexes, so you can get male frogs as well. And you basically you put your frog together, and they look very rudimentary, right? They look kind of like for, you know, elementary, intermediate, but you can see that there's actually a bunch of numbers, and it's labeled. There's a legend that this is created by two science teachers, and the legend is really detailed. And so the actual anatomical detail that they go into is really impressive. So it's not just this cartoony little like kindergarten frog. It's actually really high level educationally. But it allows, what I love about this is that it upends the usual, we're going to take our frog apart. In this case, you're actually putting them together, and the psychological flip of that, I think, is actually quite lovely. Like, you're building your frog, and so there's an interesting psychology there for that. And this is I want to give them a shout out because I just love these teachers. Their company name is Getting Nerdy with Mel and Gertie. And they're two science teachers in the US. They have put an immense amount of time and effort into developing these products. The frog isn't the only thing that they offer. They offer tons of these different paper dissections. They've got vertebrates are frogs, rats, pigs, cats, dogs, birds, snake, shark. And then they've also got the invertebrates. So they've got your sea stars and grasshopper, earthworm, clam, lots of other little critters, and they've got some human anatomy tools as well. So they have a paper eye dissection, which is great for the students who maybe want another option instead of cow's eye dissection, which is a very popular practice in classrooms.
There you go.
Yeah, this is Frogopedia.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's a fertilized egg, it says?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh
my gosh.
Growing my frog over time. So for the kids that you're teaching about frog life cycles, it's very beautiful graphics and imagery. Let's see if I can adjust my screen a little more. There we go. That's probably better. So that's Frogopedia. It also has an AR anatomy function. So you can actually, it operates in an augmented reality way. So it looks like a real frog appears on your desk, and then you can explore the anatomy that way. But it's a living, breathing frog, right? So it's not teaching from this place of like dead frog.
Right.
For those two functions. There is a dissection function where it's a virtual dissection, but I think if you did these two things first, at least you're able to say, this is who this frog was when we're doing the dissection. And it's also not a real frog, it's all computer generated imagery. So that's called Frogopedia. That's its little logo, this one.
Awesome.
Yeah. My favorite ones too are these ones called 3D Anatomy, and they've got a whole bunch of different species. This is by Biosphera. So here's my frog here, and there's no dissection on this, so there's no simulated cutting at all. My frog moves around, and say I put frog on their back right here, and then these buttons down the side just take away different body systems. So if I take the skin away, there's the frog skeleton. And then let's say we're interested in the digestive system. So you can see that we can like zoom in on the digestive system and learn all about that, and we can look at it from different angles. So if you were doing a real frog dissection, you would only look in through the belly, but this allows you to see the situation of organs from any perspective in the body. So it adds that element of 3D learning. And I love these apps in terms of inclusivity. And I know that so many products are developed in English, and our Francophone teachers or French immersion teachers are just so stuck for content sometimes, right? They're stuck for tools like this. These have French translations built in. So I'll show you the rat one. Same company, same tool, just with a different critter. And you can see here, I've already got the rat set to French. So this is a French rat, and all of the instructions and all of the body parts are in French. And so they also have other languages. So there's Latin, Spanish, Japanese, and Portuguese as well. So if you have, you know, we don't want like to assume that everyone is a native English speaker. So
cool.
yeah,
very cool.
So these are just some, it gives you an idea.
Right.
I don't want to take up more time, but
oh no, it's beautiful. I mean, because I haven't been in the schools very long, and I haven't witnessed any dissections, but what I have witnessed are salmon spawning situations. Just about every school, just before spring break when we all left, had aquariums that were boxed in, and they were sprouting eggs, I guess, which I guess it's a nice thing to do. I've heard that the success rate of that sort of salmon breeding program is very minimal, and to me, it's not a natural environment.
Yeah.
As a vegan, I just shy away from any form of animal exploitation like that. The other thing that I've seen are chickens. They'll bring eggs in and hatch the chickens. So are there alternatives to that too? And how do you feel about those sorts of processes in the school?
I have a tendency to agree with you. I mean, salmon, if we think about who salmon are, they're migratory. They migrate to spawn. And so when we're keeping them in one place and asking them to spawn in one place, why would they do that, right? So I feel like we need to really fully understand who these animals are before we go ahead and try and ask them to fit in with our programs and our environments. Same with chicks. Like, chicks have this natural behavior where when they are first born, the first thing they see is usually their mother. And so there's this hardwired neurobiological process that's called imprinting. And so they imprint onto their mother, who is usually the first person they see. But when you're hatching chicks in the classroom, these little chicks become imprinted onto whoever. And then what happens is, if you take them away from whoever it is that they're imprinted on too soon, before a natural weaning process would happen, then that's actually really distressing for them, because they're imprinted onto this person that they think is their mom, right? And so it's actually this very, very well documented neurobiological phenomenon among certain animals like chickens. And birds in particular are very strong imprinters. And so that's something to think about. So even if you have the best of intentions and you want your kids to learn about real chicks, and you make sure that the chicks all go to like a farm sanctuary afterwards, who knows, they're still going to be in that distress from being imprinted onto someone who isn't their mom. And so I think we need to put aside our hubris and understand animals for who they are really, and then be really honest about, is this actually a suitable animal to have in a classroom? So I think animal interactions can be incredibly educational. I think they can be really valuable, but they need to be done very mindfully and always in an animal-centered way. And so yeah, the chicks and the salmon spawning don't really cover those bases for me.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, in a lot of different ways. The kids, of course, love it, any opportunity to interact with animals, and they don't necessarily understand that this is completely artificial, and that there's all these stresses that are happening and that sort of thing. I think it would be more fun to just take them all to a farm sanctuary.
Yeah, why not?
Right, yeah. And see them in their natural environment. Personally, I think that would be a good thing. But I'm not a teacher. I don't make those decisions, but I appreciate that you have a similar perspective on that. So teachers can then, or any educators, I guess, you work with the public school, the private schools, colleges and universities?
We do college and university level stuff, yeah. Our hope is in the future we would actually replicate the Humane Science Education program that we currently have for K through 12, and we would replicate that to be like a university level specific program. And the reason it needs to be a separate program is that there's just different stakeholders and influences of change, and it's just a little bit different. Like there's no Ministry of Education for universities, there's no school boards for universities to kind of do any top-down policy stuff with. And so the university education, there's just different like agents of change. So we would make it a separate program, but we certainly currently are thinking, yes, that we would go in a university direction in the future. In the meantime, if university educators want to get in touch, I would always do my best to answer their questions, for sure.
And I would imagine, I think my understanding is that teachers can pretty much create the type of classroom that they want to create. They have a lot of power in determining the curriculum. And so if a parent maybe is listening and they would prefer, they could contact teachers and school boards and that sort of thing as well.
So under our School Act in British Columbia, the minister can't tell teachers how to do their jobs. He can't be prescriptive over teaching methods. So if you, people who've been teaching for a long time, or parents who have known about curriculum for a long time, there's been actually a transition in the curriculum to being less prescriptive. There's no line item in the current curriculum that says students need to perform safe, competent dissection. They used to be in there, and now it's not. Now it's like, here's your learning goals, body systems, anatomy, adaptation to function, and how you get there with your students is actually at teacher discretion. So there's a lot of power in that, for sure, especially for grassrootsy movements like this, where I hope that teachers care about educational experiences, cost savings, and inclusivity, and environmental stuff. I think that, teachers can choose their own learning modalities with their students. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I would never want to take that away.
Right. And just the practicality, we don't know what the future is going to be or what the new normal might look like. So the ability to incorporate this into their curriculum seems really powerful. And the most successful classrooms that I've been in, the advantage of being a Spirit Board is I get to be in a lot of different classrooms. And certainly the most successful are, from what I can witness of the students' engagement, and I've mostly worked with young students, is some combination of screen time learning and teacher learning. There seems to be that balance, that they seem to really jive with that. Just from a behavior point of view, they're more cooperative, they're more willing to participate. So
I fully agree.
Yeah.
And so when we deliver guest classes, the way it goes is that, especially for younger kids, like you said, if we're doing a multi-species class, for example, we would set up a frog station and a rat station and a pig human station. We divide the class into 3, and they have self-directed learning for 10 minutes. And for 10 minutes, they can be as loud as they want. They can use whatever screens they want. They can choose their own adventure. They can really we have worksheets that keep them on task, and we circulate to make sure there's no like dissolving into chatting about their weekend or their own interpersonal stuff that's going on, who knows, with kids. And then what happens is they all go to each station. So they have 10 minutes, and then we switch, and then we switch. And then at the end, we bring them together for a conversation about what they learned. Like, tell me, you teach us about what you learned in the last 45 minutes. And they're so willing and eager to share what they learned and what they were excited about. And it's really helped us refine our classes because it's student-centered. We know what works for them because we've asked. And then anything that doesn't work for them and they don't engage with, we've taken it off our stations, right? So I agree that the mixture of like self-directed or screen time and then more formal teacher time, fully agree. Yeah.
Diversity. The earth loves diversity in all aspects. It sounds like a fantastic program. I'm going to tell all my friends for sure.
Oh, thank you.
And